Welcome to the Money Mindful podcast, where money mindset and life coach Meaghan Jean Smith, hey, that's me, teaches you how to transform your relationship to money and achieve your life goals so you can live a glorious, magnificent, delicious, awesome life and love being you. Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Money Mindful podcast. I'm your host, Meaghan. Welcome. So good to be here with you. Hey, before we get into it, I've got something for you. Something secret, well, sort of secret. Something that you can't get anywhere else apart from if I give you the link to it. So listen in. I've been running some workshops lately for some other people's programs and groups, and it has been so amazing and fun, and it's been so great getting in and just working with other people outside of my one-to-one clients. And one of the things that I have been doing in these workshops is I've been taking the participants through a couple of the exercises that I have in my Abundant Mindset Toolkit. And my Abundant Mindset Toolkit is actually a resource that I made available, and I talked to you about it on the podcast a little while ago, and man, you guys sucked it up like a sponge. Like, so many of you signed up to get the Abundant Mindset Toolkit. And I thought I would just mention it again and let you know about it because it's been so popular and maybe you missed it. So if you want to get your hands on the Abundant Mindset Toolkit, basically it's a toolkit with 10 exercises in it, and it's a range of different exercises because I know we're all different people with different learning styles and just ways of being. So I've put in 10 different exercises that you can do. So there is bound to be one or more or 10 in there that resonate with you. And the exercises are designed to help you shift out of scarcity mindset, because so many of us just roll around in scarcity. We don't even realize that we're in it. And it's not necessary. You don't need to be in scarcity mindset, and it is possible to shift into having an abundant mindset. So if you want to get your hands on that toolkit, I'm going to put a link in the show notes of this episode, and you can also go to meaghanjsmith.au/abundant-mindset toolkit. And there you will be able to sign up to download that free resource. And there you go. That's available to you. I want you to have it. I just think that it's better for everyone, including myself, if there's more people out there in an abundant mindset. So go and get your hands on that now. All right, let's get into the episode. This is a bit of an inspirational episode for you. I want to really inspire you to just get out there and do it, right? Like, do you have an idea or dream that just feels so delicious that you can't stop thinking about it, but at the same time, you're not taking action on it because it feels scary as fuck? Yeah, here's what to do about it. Okay, so let's just first acknowledge that going after your big, juicy, brazen, bold goals is scary. Okay, it takes courage. Not everybody does it. Not everybody is like you. Not everybody has dreams of businesses that they want to start or big goals that they want to pursue. A lot of people choose a safe and comfortable life, right? And there's a reason for that. So let's just give you some acknowledgement and some comfort that, yes, doing something like starting a podcast or creating a business can take a lot of courageous action, because it is risky in a sense, right? You're doing something that you've never done before. And here's the thing. So many people don't go after what they want because they're afraid, right? And they're afraid of worst case scenario. And listen, I want to give you some comfort and be really compassionate in saying that, that's normal. And, I'm not being judgy on people who aren't built you can have an amazing, big, bold life and not create a business, okay? I'm not suggesting you have to create a business to be big, bold, and edgy, but, most people who are listening to this show, you have businesses because you're an entrepreneurial woman. You want to go out and do big things with your life, right? And it can be really scary to do that. And sometimes even if you are doing some big, amazing stuff, there's new levels of goals or achievements that you want to reach, let's say, and we can get into compare and despair. We can have imposter syndrome, or we can just flat out not do it because we're imagining the worst case scenario. I'll give you the example of, when I first started this podcast, I was shitting myself, man. I was so scared to put this podcast out there. I was really nervous about what other people would think. Like, would people like me? Would people judge me? Would people think that I was silly? Or would I embarrass myself? Would I humiliate myself? Right? Like all these things, like my brain just had a field day on the worst case scenario, right? That's where my brain was going. And if your brain is doing that too, because it probably is, I want to give you some comfort and just say nothing's gone wrong. Like our brain is designed to protect us and keep us alive. So if you ever want to take action on something that even hints at putting you, in the firing line or putting yourself out there, so to speak, it's your brain's job to protect you. So it's totally normal that it's going to try and shut that down and, say things like, hey, you don't need a podcast. Like you don't need that. You'd be much safer without it. Or you don't need to do that new big thing in your business. You don't need to raise your prices, right? Like that's scary. That's new. That's different. We're perfectly safe and comfortable as we are. Thank you very much. Can you relate? I mean, my brain does this for sure. But here's the thing. When we don't go after what we want because we're afraid, like when we don't take action on our money and life goals because we fear worst case scenario, here's what you're also saying no to. You're saying no to best case scenario. What? You with me? Because if you say no to failure, right? If you don't do something because you're scared of failing, you're scared of stuffing it up, you're scared of falling on your face, you're scared of looking like an idiot, you're scared of rejection, okay, if you don't go ahead and take that action, for sure, you will protect yourself from that, okay? Because you will stay in your comfort zone, you'll stay where you are now. However, when you say no to potentially, making mistakes or worst case scenario, you're also saying no to best case scenario. I got to share a story with you about this. So just recently I was at a business event for women. It was just a one-day mini conference. And you are not going to believe what happened. I mean, maybe you will believe what happened, but for me, it was like crazy. So when I got there in the morning, we'd registered, my girlfriend had arrived, we'd gone out to have a coffee, we were walking back into the room and we'd just gone to take a photo. So we left our little name tags, like our little lanyards on our seats so we wouldn't lose our seats. And we were walking back into the room and this woman walked up to me sort of like to get my attention. And I straight away thought, I was like, oh no, we've already signed in. We're here. We've just left our name tags. Like I was trying to justify like we're allowed to be here. And I didn't even know if she noticed that, but she just launched into saying, you know, hi, Meaghan, hi. Like she knew my name. I was like, what? And she was like, I just had to come up and talk to you. Like I listen, like she introduced herself and she's like, I listen to your podcast. I absolutely love it. I'm such a fan. And I mean, by this stage, I've blanked out. I can't even remember exactly what she said now because I was just so like, what? Like, it was such a surreal experience for someone to know who I was. I mean, what the hell? And also to say that she was a real fan of what I am doing and that the podcast really helps her and everything and all. And then later in the day, the same thing happened with someone else. Someone else came up to me and was just like, I'm a real fangirl. Like, I'm such a fan of the show. And I'm like, what is happening? I kind of feel like in this moment, I'm supposed to be really cool and just be like, this happens all the time. People approach me in the street. No, that does not happen. I get emails and people DM me and that is delightful. And I'm also like have those same feelings, but there's a barrier there, right? Because I'm reading it or it's not face-to-face interaction, but having a real human being in the flesh come up to you and tell you that they admire what you do and that they're a fan and everything, it is a next level surreal experience. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Not to brag or whatever, but just to say, to take it back to when I was first worrying about starting this podcast and, you know, all the hullabaloo that went along in my mind, like all the fears and everything. If I had said no to that and not gone ahead and done it, I would have been saying no to having people come up to me in real life and telling me how much the show benefits. I would have been saying no to being able to serve and help all my one-to-one clients do the most incredible things. I'm telling you, the women that I work with are out of this world, amazing human beings, and it's such a privilege to be able to work with them and watch them grow and evolve into the next version of themselves that they want to be. Watch them smash income goals, pay off debt, double their income, get their business in magazines and I mean, so many things. It's not just all monetary stuff, right, that they have done. None of that would have happened if I hadn't have started this podcast. Like this podcast was such a pivot of can't even get that word out. You know what I'm saying? Pivotal. There, got it. Moment in my journey of things, and I could have said no to it. But if I had said no, I would have been saying no to all the best case scenarios. So I want to inspire you today with the idea, like, why not you? Seriously, right? Like that, those dreams that you have, I know that they feel impossible before we've created them because we haven't done it before. I mean, think about it. It makes total sense, right? Anything that you go to do that you've never done before feels like crazy impossible, right? But those crazy impossible things can become a reality, but you have to take the steps towards it. You have to move towards making it happen. And, you know, you could be experiencing common things that lots of people experience. myself included, that imposter syndrome stuff, like, oh, why would anyone want to listen to me? Or why would somebody want to pay me to do that? Oh, there's already heaps of marketing coaches out there, or there's already heaps of people who have holiday accommodation places, or there's already heaps of women in business who do interior design, right? Whatever it is, there is nobody like you who does it like you. And there's someone out there who only wants to work with you. And I can say this confidently because I just recently signed up for a course that I'm doing that somebody else is literally running that same course. Like, it's a licensed thing. Like, you become a licensed coach or practitioner, if you will, in this particular course that I'm doing. And the person who actually is the original creator of this course, I just don't connect with them. And in some respects, it would be better if I did it with them because maybe I'd get a certification, but I just don't resonate with them. I resonate with the person that I signed up for, that I want to work with. And I wouldn't be doing this work if it wasn't for her, because I connect with her. I want to work with her, right? And I know that this is a really crazy thing to get your head around, because I'm telling you now, it's still, even I'm not that cool to say to you that it doesn't blow my mind when people tell me stuff like that they just want to work with me. They like what I do, but it's true. Like, they are working with me because they connect with me and want what I have to offer that nobody else has to offer, because they're not me, right? And it's exactly the same with you, right? Why not you? Why not? Like, answer that question, right? And then ask yourself, like, what am I afraid of? The answer to that question will be the worst case scenario stuff, right? Your brain is going to offer you all the worst case scenario, all the terrible, scary things that are going to happen if you go after what you want. But then what you can do to overcome that is just ask yourself, well, what would you do? Like, how would you actually handle that if it did happen, the worst case scenario, right? Like, let's say right now, the thing that you're working on is you want to increase your prices, right? It's time, okay? It's time for you to increase your prices. And by the way, this just goes for everyone listening. It's time for you to increase your prices. It's the universal thing that so many of us go through, right? But let's say this is what you're going through right now. And what are you afraid of? Right? Answer that question. Maybe you're afraid that you won't get any business. Maybe you're afraid that basically nobody's ever going to want to work with you again and you're going to go broke, and obviously it's going to be the worst case scenario. You're going to end up on the streets and probably be destitute, right? Because this is what our brain does. This is the sort of stuff that our brain throws at us. But let's just bring it back a bit. So how would you handle that? Like, if you raised your prices and nobody signed up at your new price, what would you do? You would know what to do, right? Maybe you put your prices back to what they are now. Maybe you change your target audience. Maybe you tweak your marketing a bit. Maybe you just are patient while you learn to sell your product at that higher price, right? Like, there's so many different things that you could do, but you would be able to handle it, right? You would actually know what to do. I mean, so often we get so scared and worried about worst case scenario, but then when you actually go through, so many times I've done this with my clients, I'm not even kidding you, sometimes, and myself, the worst case scenario has been, oh, I'd feel disappointed. And listen, I'm not laughing in terms of, having a go at judging, but it's kind of hilarious, right? Like, because we just think about worst case scenario and we make this big deal about it in our heads. But when we actually go there and think about, well, how would I handle it? Or what's the worst that can happen? It's like, oh, I'd feel disappointed, right? Or I'd feel a little bit embarrassed, or, so often we would know actually how we would handle it. it might not be pleasant. Might be uncomfortable, but we would actually handle it, right? And we do know what to do. And that's a very sobering exercise to do, to just take your brain to that place where it's worst case scenario and then tell your brain, hey, this is what we'd do and this is how we'd handle it. Because that can actually offer you a lot of comfort ahead of time, that you actually know how to handle the worst case scenario. And then as part of that same exercise, then go to, but imagine best case scenario. Like, imagine if you went for it. Imagine if you did raise your prices. What's the best case scenario? That you tell the price to your client and they just don't even blink an eye and they're like, okay, and they just pay the invoice. Right? Because I'm telling you, that's what most of the time happens when you increase your prices, okay? We get so afraid to do things like that in our business and we don't. But when we don't, because we're afraid of what's happening, we're actually saying no to best case scenario. Don't say no to best case scenario, okay? Because you can handle worst case scenario. And if you don't do what you want to do because you're scared of worst case scenario, you miss out on best case scenario. Your best case scenarios are worth going after. You are worth it. And why not you? That big dream of yours that you want to do, or that next level that you want to take in your business, that next up leveling, if we stick with the raising your prices example, tell me that there's not somebody in your industry who hasn't already done it. I bet there is. And if they can do it, why not you? Why not you? Right? You can do it. You're worth it. Go and take that big, courageous next step towards those delicious, amazing, big money and life goals of yours. And if you need support to do it, let yourself have it. The next steps are to book a consultation with me. Come and work with me. If you are resonating with what you hear on this podcast and you want my support to help you in coaching you so you can achieve these big, delicious goals of yours and live a life that you love, sign up for a consultation. Let's meet. You can do that by clicking on the link in the show notes or going to my website. All right, until I get in your ears again next week, have an amazing week. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Money Mindful podcast. For future episodes, be sure to subscribe. Ready to take the next steps? Creating your money and life goals can be super challenging if you don't have a process to follow. Get my free course that will help you get unstuck, clarify your goals, and get you going. For more info, go to meaghanjsmith.au.